Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I am delighted and excited to be joined in person by my friend Adrienne Jezick. Let me tell you about this incredible woman and what she's been up to. Adrienne is the founder of the Morozko Method and the co-founder of the one and only Morozko Forge. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar, that is the premier ice bath in America. The one that Joe Rogan is always hopping in his little skivvies, in his too tight underwear.
Those super awesome MeUndies.
I mean, it's cool.
It's cool.
But my wife's like, why does he wear those? They're so tight. I'm like, I don't know. Who knows? So, Adrienne, thank you so much for beaming in and for coming to Georgia to be here with me. I'm so grateful to have you. I was mentioning to you, I hear your voice every day because my first time doing this was at the biohacking conference, and I was so lucky the stars were aligned that you were there and you were taking people through using your method. And so I had that experience, and I've never been able to, nor have I had any desire to experience the ice bath differently than with you. And so I feel like I know you already, and I know we're aligned on a great many things. But thank you so much for beaming in and for being here with me. So we have to get started. You've had this incredible journey to become first the co-founder and then to develop this incredible technique. And people who follow me and listen to my podcast and listen to me ranting online know that I've come into a very spiritual existence and understanding of this life. And whenever I see something remarkable happening that matches, both the metaphysical with the physical, like an ice bath and a meditative practice that goes along with it with your breath, I am astounded by how powerful it can be for people who are trying to, find homeostasis in their health and or recover from something and or just stay optimal in their fitness and well-being. So you're gonna have to take us a little bit through your journey, because I know it's very unique. So please.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me. I just want to say, by you allowing me to be here and having me a guest here, you helped me achieve my greatest mission in life, and that is to share the healing benefits of the cold with the masses. So thank you for having me as a guest today. And I did not get into this practice because I love the cold. I think it's really important to say that I grew up in Florida. I lived in Hawaii, Phoenix, Arizona, Austin, Texas. Summers are my favorite time of year. I would take 118 degrees, 365 days a year. And when I came to this practice, like I said, it wasn't because I loved the cold. It was because I was very sick. I had 3 autoimmune conditions: Hashimoto's, urticaria, and eosinophilic esophagitis.
Wow.
And I was diagnosed with these in my early 30s. Never really been sick before in my life. Hadn't gone through any super, what I had thought of as like major illnesses. And once I got these diagnoses, it was just like, okay, now you have a list of specialists that you have to see every year. You have a pile of medication on my nightstand table. At the height of it, I was taking more than 20 vitamins, pills, and prescription pills and supplements every single day. And I was told that if I didn't take these prescriptions, that because of this chronic illness, that I had risk of death.
Wow.
So no fear there, right?
No, not at all.
No, not at all. And the hardest part for me was, over the years of taking these medications and, seeing these pill bottles just grow over time, was that I never felt any better. And if anything, I'd say towards the end of it, I felt worse. And that's how I was really at my wit's end. I would have tried anything to make me feel better. And so that's where the cold came in. And it was because I was reading a lot. I was reading fiction, and they were talking about it in fiction books. Hemingway talked about it, Steinbeck talked about it. And then nonfiction, so Nassim Taleb, Anti-Fragile, Aubrey Marcus, Own the Day. Like, there are all these different people from many different genres talking about the power and the healing benefits of cold. And this is also on the cusp of when Wim Hof started becoming very popular.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know, he's got this hyperactive, holotropic, hyperventilative breath work, followed by a competitive ice bath.
Yeah.
And, again, wit's end, tried this as a last-ditch effort. Like, here we go. And my ex-husband, Jason, who is also one of my business partners, said, I know what I'll do. I'm just going to set this up in the backyard. Because, I would have never gone willingly to this practice for sure. He's like, I'm just going to set this up in the backyard. We'll invite some friends over. If you feel called to it, you can join us. Well, this is where my competitive nature comes in. It's my house. This is my house. So, we did the Wim Hof breath work. And then I walked over to the ice bath. And this is really fun. If you Google Adrienne's first ice bath, you will see this ice bath. And I put one foot on either side of the tub, and I put one hand on either side of the tub, and I dropped myself violently into the water.
Wow.
Held my breath. Turns out that lasted 9 seconds until I freaked out and I leapt out, and I was just like, whoa, I did that.
Yeah.
So for this years and years of being told all the things I couldn't do, all the things I couldn't eat, all the things I didn't have energy for, all the things I was losing in my life because this illness was really just taking over anything that I had left in my life. There were 2 things that happened after that 9 seconds that altered the entire course of my life. The first was that the chronic pain I had in my legs for more than a decade was gone.
Wow.
And now anyone who lives with chronic pain will tell you that even a moment's relief, you would do anything for it. So that was the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed was this sense of empowerment. Like, wow, this is something I can do. I just did that. I didn't care that it was 9 seconds. I did it. And that was really rad. And so I knew, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this again. Like, not today, but I'm going to do this again. And I did about once a week for a few weeks, kept doing it again. But by my 3rd or 4th ice bath, I was standing in front of it after the breath work, and I was in this anxious state. And in this state of anxiety, I couldn't get myself to get in the water. And now all of a sudden I'm afraid. I'm afraid, what if I launch myself in or drop myself in and I pass out? Or what if I drop myself in and I hit my head on the back of the tub and I pass out? Or what if any number of things, and also it's really uncomfortable, and so I don't really want to do it,
Right.
but I know that there's this good feeling on the other side of it. And I realized as I'm standing there in that state of anxiety was, Wim has this great masculine, yang type of energy.
Yeah.
It's very competitive. It's very breathe, motherfucker. He's so serious.
Get into ice.
Yeah. And then I realized that's not for me. I needed to find a way to surrender. I'd lived my entire life up until this point in a state of fight or flight, in a state of competition, in a state of defense, in a state of, I've got this. I am the fighter. And the ice very quickly showed me that this was not something I was going to be able to fight or compete against. This was something I had to find surrender in. So by that 3rd or 4th ice bath, standing in front of the water in this anxious state, I started to draw on my own experiences of how to get myself out of an anxious state into a calm body. And through dialectical behavioral therapy, I learned, you can engage your physical senses. So what is anxiety?
Yeah.
It's a fear of the past or a fear of the future based on some experience of the past, not typically what's happening in the now.
No.
So it's all up here. It's all in your head.
Yep.
So how do I get myself out of my head and into my body? I engage my physical senses. So what can I see? What can I smell?
Can I feel?
What can I taste? What can I touch? What can I hear? And in doing that, I started to get calm. And I realized, okay, I have to step in with intention. I have to sit down on purpose. I have to do this with full mindfulness.
Yes.
And I did. It was the first ice bath where I stepped into the water. And I sat down and I leaned back and I chose to just breathe. This is also the first time I made it past 2 minutes.
Wow.
And so every single time I took an ice bath, especially in the beginning, I stepped out, I felt like I was a whole new person.
Yeah.
And so here in the throes of autoimmune, all this illness, everything I can't do, I find this thing not only that I can do, but that really makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel good for hours or days afterwards. This 2 minutes gives me this reset that lasts sometimes for days.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So of course I started telling everyone, like, you got to try this.
Yeah.
And I started to, anyone who was interested, I was like, just come over to the house, give it a try. I said, I'll walk you through it.
Yeah.
I'll walk you through it using the same technique that I get myself through it. Because the first thing everyone says, same thing I said, is there's just no way I'm going to do that.
Right.
I hate the cold. No way. So at the same time that Jason and Tom are trying to figure out how to make 24/7 ice available, because there was nothing on the market for that at the time.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to figure out, how do I introduce people to this practice in a calm and intentional way? And so that's where the Morozko Method was born, was this more of a yin energy, more of a surrendering and a nurturing technique, this mindful meditation, bringing in ceremony, bringing in medicine, bringing in all of these things. You know, we think of ice bathing as this biohacking, health healing, body changing thing. But if you think about what's going on in the brain while you're taking an ice bath, we can turn this into the most powerful medicine there is.
Yes.
So within less than 2 years of my very first plunge experience, I reversed all trace of autoimmune in my system.
Wow.
And I didn't tell my doctor. I went into my endocrinologist for my labs. I was like, yeah, just read me the labs. Like, I'd been off all medications for 3 or 4 months. I was like, just tell me how I'm doing. She's like, well, this isn't within range. All this was in range. All these look good.
She's
Antibodies
like,
are looking good.
Working, finally.
She's like, everything's looking really great. I want to keep you right where you're at. And I said, that's great, because I'm not doing anything.
Man, I would have loved to see her face.
Not to mention, I'd lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
Which is unheard of on Hashimoto's. And so she's like, what are you doing? Well, I was eating a low inflammation food regimen. Thank you, Dr. Terry Wall's protocol, teaching me about whole ingredient eating. And I was practicing ice bathing.
Yeah.
She's like, cool, I'm going to write that down in your file. Hopefully I never have to see you again.
That's amazing.
And I thought, yeah, I felt the same way.
It's a great doctor you have.
Yeah, that's what I thought until I walked out in the waiting room. And then I saw a dozen other people, overweight, medicated, stuck in the system, and not a one of them looked healthy or happy.
Right.
And I realized, yeah, great doctor, but is that great doctor going to tell any one of these people that I just did the unheard of, that I just cured the incurable, that legally I'm not even technically supposed to say that I cured my autoimmune, even though you can run any test on me right now and determine I have no trace of autoimmune?
I made it go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I became very angry with that doctor.
Yeah.
And with doctors in general. And now I can see, now in this reflective space, I can see modern medicine has its place.
Yeah.
And it's still up to me for how well I'm taking care of my mind, my body, my spirit.
Yeah. And it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's not a responsibility that's cultivated in this society. You know, I mean, now more than ever, it is, you know, they want you to believe that it's out of your hands. And we inadvertently, we teach our children that, you know, because our parents were taught it.
Yeah.
And they were probably some of the first generations taught it.
Yeah, there's nothing you did to get this.
Right.
There's nothing you can do about it. And this is just your life now.
Yeah.
No.
Or you're sick, but let's go to the doctor.
Yeah.
What's the doctor going to do? Prescribe you penicillin. It's the greatest invention, you know, everyone.
Greatest accidental invention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my God, like everything, they just figured out how to make money with it in every which way. And they're still doing it, you know. I mean, you can't, when in doubt, they're just like, I just prescribe them some antibiotics. Wait a minute, how is that going to... I just told you I have a pain in my foot. You know, like what? I don't understand. How is radiating my... And I never knew about growing up, you know. I didn't go to the doctors a lot. Was more broken bones and, you know, sports and all that. But everyone, you know, you grow up, something's wrong with you, they bring you to the doctor. So you're giving away your power, and of course, the greatest pharmacy on the planet is always going to be right in your body.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what pharmaceuticals attempt to do anyway. They attempt to imitate, you know, a response in the body. So it's just, and of course, if the doctor's not going to tell. It's amazing that she was at least, or either she was putting it on or she Because, you know, I've
No,
heard,
I think she was serious.
Yeah.
I think she was actually very serious, that she was very happy for me. She
Yeah.
was happy I lost the weight. She was happy I was doing so well. She was happy to see me happy.
Yeah.
I think all of those things were true. And I think if I were sick and if I needed a doctor, I would still go to a
Right.
doctor if I needed a doctor. But I woke up with a fever 2 weeks ago, and you know what I did?
Well,
I fasted.
yeah.
And that fever lasted about 6 to 8 hours. I fasted for about 48 hours, and I was fine.
You didn't feed it? You didn't feed the
I
fever?
didn't feed the fever? Yeah.
I
Imagine
swear,
that.
Everything that they teach us is backwards. I mean,
Not everything.
a lot of it, though.
A lot of it. I don't know how to set my own bones. So
Yeah.
I'm very glad that when I broke my arm,
that's true, yeah.
I had modern medicine.
Yeah. But they don't teach us how to set our own bones.
No, they don't.
But God, I think about, I mean, not to get into the food pyramid, but I mean, the whole thing is backwards. It's like literally, if you were going to draw up directions to go someplace and you were going to give them the wrong direction at every turn, that's the food pyramid as far as your health goes.
Well, and what really blows my mind, so, hindsight's 2020. And when I look back on this, when I got sick, I was pescatarian.
Oh, wow.
So, is that the reason? No. That's being pescatarian doesn't mean you get autoimmune. But if you live your entire life in a state of fight or flight, if you are constantly in this stress state, if you can never relax and be safe in your body, and then you remove the nutrients that your body needs to survive, your body is going to react.
Yeah,
It is going to get angry.
absolutely. And just living in a state of fight or flight, regardless of your diet, you can have the best diet on the planet. The body's not going to, you're going to develop health problems. You know?
Stress is our number one killer.
Absolutely. And then you after that you go into the number 3 killer for help. So you're in trouble by then. By that point you're in trouble. And so much of it does come from our inability to regulate our own nervous systems. We have this incredible, call it soft technology, but this human body, amazing in what it can do and experience and feel, but also a lot of survival programs. And we don't live in that age anymore. And actually, we probably, when we did, we had a lot less shit going on. So I doubt there was as many people walking around in fight or flight, even in the times of the fucking giant cave bear and saber-toothed tiger, than there are now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure those tribe of people, that they were more like, a pack of wolves in their state. They were very present, I'm sure. They had to be in many ways.
You had to be very present.
So they weren't like, fuck, we got to go to that place where I don't want to go where that, I'm sure it wasn't this constant state of anxiety like we're in now. And they didn't have to worry about being late and shit. And, I don't know. It's just, it's crazy how we've become the dominant force on the planet. And yet we can't even get out of our own way.
I really think that from the moment we invented fire, we became more technologically advanced than our bodies would ever biologically be able to keep up with. So as soon as we started being able to control our environment and control our temperature around us, we just kept doubling down on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have these tiny little devices that pack our brains full of so much information in a day that we're really not supposed to be consuming. And now we think that we're surrounded by all of these invisible threats.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
No. And they'll continue to invent them too. Communism, invisible. Terrorism, invisible. And one thing after the next. And that's another podcast. That's right. That's usually my forte, those kinds of conversations. But this is an ancient, I think, healing modality that is probably lost in the West for a lot of reasons. But Scandinavia, Sweden, you go to these places where their seasons are different than ours, and this is a practice.
They've never stopped.
No, they've never stopped. I saw a video the other day of this. It looked like Siberia, I'm guessing, based on what was going on in the family and the language that I could hear being spoken. And it was like a daily routine. And the dad came out and there was a big old
Barrel.
barrel out.
And he put his son right in the barrel.
Put both
and
his
you can
kids
see
right
the
in.
snow
Yep.
on the ground.
And on the ground. I mean,
Falling from the sky.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, they go in.
It's just what they do.
Pull them out. Kids are like, whew. And even that I'm sure bestows a remarkable degree of resilience, health on those kids growing up. And they're tough as nails. I don't know, I don't know if people realize, Russia has a reputation for being tough, and it's been earned because they're, especially if you go towards Siberia, they're tough people.
They're doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they live
just
it.
like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
It's just what you do. It's what you do, and it's what you do for that mental, emotional, and physical resilience.
Yes.
It touches all three pillars. When you can approach it with a calm mindset, when you can calmly sit in freezing cold water and breathe through your fight or flight response, you are becoming stronger than your body's most strong physical responses.
You're becoming the master.
Yeah.
And what happens to us almost, across the board in this life is we forget that and we develop programs and habits that are out of our control. And then we find ourselves working to try to take back our own bodies, which happened. Yeah.
We do it by trying to control our environments rather than trying to control our response.
Yes.
So all we have to do is control our response, not how cold it is or how bright it is or how loud it is or how comfortable we are. All we have to do is learn how to be responsible for the way that we respond.
And that's what this practice does, on a whole other level. And so no wonder, the health effects are resounding. We're gonna get into some of the hard science behind this practice, but it makes perfect sense to me. People spend half their life developing bad habits and running on subconscious programs, and then they realize those habits are not only killing them, but also bringing a lot of self-loathing, a lot of unhealthy living to their relationships. It's as above, so below, and that's just like this practice. And then they find themselves trying to work their butts off, and I fall right into this category, and proudly will admit it because it's the reason I'm sitting here, having this conversation. And so this practice, we're going to get into it. Let me just say this before we go forward. So since I've gotten an ice bath, a Morozko Forge, and of course I do it before I work out, which I would have done anyway because I do it in the morning. It's just easier, unless it's like 20 degrees out, which is rare here in Georgia. But I might wait till it hits like a balmy 30, 40 degrees and then be like, but my energy levels, like not even on the same page. My immune system response, how fast I heal. I live a very busy lifestyle. I love to box. Now coaching my 12-year-old's baseball team, and I'm like one of those guys who, ends up going to sleep and not realizing he's bleeding. I'm just.
So you're busy.
Yeah, I'm busy, and I'm kind of like I'm going from here to there, and but I notice when things are moving fast, as far as my immune response and how fast I heal from things, than when they're not, and there's a marked, noticeable difference. As far as my moods, I'll tell you straight up, it doesn't matter how tired I am, how I have kids and I have a commute every day. I spend too much time in a car more than I would like to now, but I got to get them to where they need to be. But it's exhausting, an hour and a half to and from every day, and being in the car. But when I take myself outside to my ice bath and I get in, it doesn't matter what I felt like before, because it's gone when I get out. It's fucking gone. I mean, like anxiety, exhaustion, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
When I step out of that, not only, sometimes I have tears coming out of my eyes. A, because I'm so fucking proud of myself
Mm-hmm.
that I did it.
Yeah.
B, because all the shit that was going on in my mind
Washes away.
2 minutes before is complete. I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there, and if the sun isn't on my face, then I'm imagining it is,
Yeah.
And I have your voice in my ear, and I'm grateful every day that you have gone through what you've gone through, and that you're sharing this with the world, because it's a gift. And it's making a difference in a lot of people's lives, mine included. And that's not even to get into these incredible, we're going to talk about some of the hard data so that people stop, thinking that this is just like, in our imaginations.
Well, and I'll preface this by saying, whatever data you come up with, you can probably come up with some data to argue against it.
Of course.
So what I'll preface this with is try it.
Mm-hmm.
Try it, and try it with a guide, or try it with one of my meditations. Try it with this calm, mindful, and intentional practice. And if you don't like it, don't do it again. But I'll tell you, in the thousands of ice baths I've guided, only 2 people have ever said that they wouldn't do it again.
Really?
This is over 6 years and thousands of ice baths.
Yeah.
2 people.
And I bet
They still had a great time.
I'm sure they did.
They still had great results.
And I bet they had second thoughts about that statement too afterwards.
I don't know. I'd love to follow up with them to find out.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
I remember them very vividly.
I bet you do. My God. God, I was so lucky to have you that you were there that day, and
I wish I could guide everyone in the world's first ice bath.
Yeah.
I really do. And that's why I created the meditations, because I realized, and that's why I'm teaching and certifying other guides in this method, because
Awesome.
I can't do it all by myself.
No.
So.
No, it's a lot. I know it's because my friend went back the next day, and I was like, you got to find Adrienne, and she was like, oh no, Adrienne's not. She's taking the day. I was like, well, yeah. Imagine doing this for 3 days, all day, every day.
Yeah, by that last day, I simply was done.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it gets
Carrying people through fight or flight.
Yeah.
One right after the other, after the other, after the other. Yeah.
And you're not phoning it in.
No.
You were with me the whole. I'll never forget it, because your voice. I was like, okay. I was ready to get out, and I didn't care that because I was shooting the vlog. I was shooting that vlog, and I was like, I don't fucking care. I got to get out of here, because all systems point to imminent death if I don't.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, just listen. Just listen. So I breathed and I listened, and man, but it's incredible. You're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you talk about 6 different categories and benefits of health that come from this. And everything from brain health to
Try 6 times infinity.
Yeah.
So it used to be people would come to me and say, what is this good for? And I could talk for 3 days and maybe never hit on the one thing that you're working on.
Right.
So now I say, why don't you tell me what you're working on? And I'll tell you how the cold has an impact.
Okay.
So there are 6 that are like the top ones.
Right.
Your immune health, your stress inoculation, inflammation, things like that. But there's not one thing in the world that I have found that this doesn't have an impact on.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
I just told you how it doesn't matter how shitty of a mood I'm in or how tired I am, and that when I bring myself to do this, it's gone. It's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's how about that for what could be faster than that?
2-minute reset.
Any pill you take is going to take 45 minutes and then probably going to come with side effects.
Shot of espresso in a yoga class. Still going to take at least an hour.
That's right. It's going to take at least an hour. And then hopefully the yoga class is good and not frustrating. Where
Right.
You're like, fuck.
Right.
So
lay this data on us.
and there's so much of it, and like inflammation and markers. Everyone talks a lot about inflammation these days because we know that it's one of the key markers of health, and it's kind of what happens first. It's the body's first way of signaling, hey, something's wrong, pay attention. And and if people who are getting treatments, I see it all the time, like I started this and then all my markers went down, like my inflammation markers went down, and like there's very few things that will act systemically to bring all inflammation down in the body. I can think of like 2 right now, and only one of them is something that most people would consider. The other one is like urine therapy, that has also been known to have a pretty dramatic. So if you do both,
I hate the cold, but I'm going to stick with ice baths on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we have such a taboo. It's so funny. Other cultures don't have the same taboo, but
I know. I'm okay with that. Come see me in a few years if the ice baths stop working.
Yeah. I mean, but for people who are dealing with it, and people are dealing with an array of health issues these days, young people, middle-aged people, older people, it seems to get worse and worse. So I just think something like this, is before you go ahead and are reaching out to the most prominent doctor in all of Eastern Europe trying to find an answer, why don't you take it back to things that we know have a powerful effect on the body and work, because you may not need another allopathic expert to tell you things are going haywire. I'm just speaking for our audience that has tuned in, who is likely looking for, and I know this will find the ears of those that it needs to. But like I was listening to Wim Hof tell a story the other day, and Russell Brand was talking to him about how do you feel about the pharmaceutical industry? And he's like, look, Wim was like, I'm not even going to wrestle with that. He was like, I'll give you an example. He said he had a mother come to him. She had twin boys. I think they were fraternal. They had brain tumors. They both had brain tumors. And they couldn't, she wanted them to be able to get either the they thought they could get rid of it with radiation. They were sure of it. But the kids' immune systems were kerplunk. They were not functioning. So they wouldn't even allow these kids to get the radiation. That gives you an idea of how low the immune system was operating. She went to Wim and she said, what do you think? And he said, if you tell me you want me to get their immune systems up, I'll get their immune systems up. Then you have to do what you feel is right for your children. If that means this treatment or that, then that's going to be on you. He's like, but I will do this for you, even though this is not exactly what I do. But I'm, and he started doing, slowly but surely, more and more exposure for these boys. And then I think within a month, all their markers were well above range to make them eligible for this therapy. Now, whether she went, for the chemo, for the radiation, a few weeks, is something that was a lifelong thing for these boys. Hopefully she kept going before she decided, to do that. But I don't know. I don't know the situation well enough to comment about whether she decided to go that allopathic route. I just know that it's not a very good outcome most of the time.
The stories are out there.
Yeah.
If you go to the science tab on the Morozko Forge website, it's either the science tab or the journal tab. I don't remember what we call it, but there are stories all over there.
Yeah.
Of reversing diabetes, reversing cancer, reversing autoimmune. I've been working this past year with veterans suffering PTSD, with people in sober living facilities, recovering from substance misuse, with first responders, people who are in a constant stress state and who are constantly putting themselves into a stress state. we can't do anything to heal the body until we can calm the nervous system. When you can sit calmly in that freezing cold water, you become the power, you become the master of your response to these extremes. Nothing holds power over you anymore.
Yeah. It's very true. And I'm sure you've heard some, and obviously we have to be careful what we say when talking about disease and cures, which is fucking travesty in and of itself. But I know, and this is not exactly my world, but I'm a student of Dr. Joe Dispenza's, and I've seen some, what the medical community would call miracles become very commonplace with people who are suffering from every terminal diagnosis you can imagine, and they find a way to create a new state of health in their body where that disease is no longer there. And I often am sitting in the cold and thinking about the changes that I want to make and how I'm literally making them in real time, sitting in that water. So the two things very clearly linked to me. But I'm sure you've had some remarkable stories. Like, what was some of if you had one kind of dramatic turn, and I'm sure you've had a lot, as far as people you were working with?
One that always stands out for me, this young woman who had Guillain-Barré syndrome, and she had a type of it that was like specifically a neuro something. I forget what it's called, but it's like only 3% of people with Guillain-Barré have this. And she went from full body paralysis, eating through a tube, to re-enrolling in medical school.
No shit.
Because of cold exposure, waking up and watching the sun come up, watching the sun go down in the evening, intermittent and extended fasting, red light therapy. But even she says to this day, the cold is what really did it for her. The cold is what gives her the energy when she feels like she has no energy, helps her calm her mind when she gets into that anxious state, gives her the peace of mind when you just can't settle down. And I have a podcast recording. I forget. I'm not going to remember the title of it. But if you go to the Morozko Method podcast on Spotify, find the one with Guillain-Barré syndrome. Amazing. It's an incredible story. And they went from thinking she was days, weeks, or months away from dying.
Wow.
To hear she's got her whole life back. Kara Dunn. There's her name. Yeah. And I had a podcast with her. I worked with her. She actually learned about cold exposure through Dr. Courtney Hunt in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so I was not her first introduction to it, and introducing her to it with the Morozko Method took it to a whole new level for her. And so, that's just one, but that being one story of a person getting their entire life back. Yeah. I've got dozens.
Yeah, sure.
Of, like you said, all different ailments, different ages, different walks of life.
Yeah. And I think, I think that, like you said, intention, and we have such creative power as human beings, on this awesome planet we live on. And this is kind of our divine spark and our gift, what makes us human. And we're always using it. And much of the time, unfortunately, people are using it without a lot of conscious thought, and it's creating outcomes in their life they don't want. But when you put this power to use in a kind of practice that is this ancient and powerful, there's not much that you can accomplish with it. Like you hear people talking about, like, you can use sex to manifest a fortune. Well, okay.
I should be so rich. What I love about this is if you do break it down to the science, in a 2-minute ice bath, below 35 degrees, submerged up to your neck with your hands and your feet in, When you can approach that with a calm mindset, even if you have that initial onslaught of hyperventilation, that initial onslaught of the fight or flight response, but you can calm yourself down through it. Think about this. You are producing tens of thousands of new neural pathways in your brain from a place of meditative calm while producing copious amounts of norepinephrine and dopamine. Well, if I'm going to create tens of thousands of new neural pathways in my brain, don't I want to give myself some structure around that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't just want to go in there all willy-nilly. I want to go in there with the intention of, I am healing my body. I am strong. I do hard things. I can be calm. I can choose response rather than reactivity. So that mindful intention piece, the whole point of the Morozko Method is to put you into that mindful state before your toes ever touch water. So that by the time your toes do touch water, you realize this is a physical sensation. This cold water is a physical sensation. This is what cold feels like. Our bodies need this. They need this extreme. And when we start introducing those extremes of heat and extremes of cold, the extremes of life don't seem so extreme anymore.
No, and it's all, the experience I have is akin to like when I was in college and high school. We would get our hands on cigarettes and we would smoke at every opportunity we could. Mm-hmm. Probably a Pennsylvania thing.
Yeah.
You know about that.
I don't know what you're talking about. 13 to 19. That's when I smoked cigarettes.
Newports? Yeah, I have Marlboros. What kind you have? And then you develop a habit, and then you eventually you quit that habit, and as you quit, you realize what's been missing. Like all of a sudden, like food tastes like, oh my God, has it always tasted this good? No, you've just been fucking completely abating your appetite with cigarette smoke and toxins and stuff. Since I started regularly taking, and this is I love this dichotomy. I talk about it all the time, and it fascinates me about this life and this experience we have here. After an ice bath, that shower you take, that hot shower you take at any point in that day is just, it's exquisite. I mean, it's like you feel every drop. It's a different experience. It's gotta be, it's almost like, finally getting a glass of water after being in the desert. It just tastes so good, or it rearranges your appreciation, because your pleasure centers are being put back to where, maybe they should be. And we live in a world that is, the gratification is everywhere.
Yeah, those tiny little dopamine hits.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I think of when I think of the body, and again, in a freezing cold ice bath. So I'm talking below 35 degrees. Yeah, I think any amount of cold is a good amount of cold. I'm just going to say that. If you're uncomfortable, you're doing work.
Yeah.
Period. So I don't care if you say 55 or 75. If you're uncomfortable, you're doing work. But for me, when I'm thinking of metabolic change, when I'm thinking of changing the way our brain and bodies function, I want it to be below 35 degrees. I want to be surrounded by big, icy chunks.
Yeah.
And the reason is because every time, like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it worth it. And so every single time I get in there, my body has to come online. Mm-hmm. It has to work at optimum efficiency. It thinks I'm dying.
Right.
So all of a sudden, my body is like, we got to get to work.
Yeah. Wake up, everybody.
Wake up, everybody.
The fuck up.
Do your job. Do it right, and do it right because your literal life depends on it. Yeah. And I also think of like autoimmune as like the dog without a job. If you don't take your dog on walks, you don't give your dog some exercise, it's going to destroy your home.
Yes.
So my body in autoimmune was destroying itself. This super sophisticated computer, the most technologically advanced thing on this planet, my body, was turning against itself. When I started introducing the ice, it had a job to do. Mm-hmm. It was like, not only do we have to come online and work at optimum efficiency to keep Adrienne alive, but we got work to do.
Yeah. We got some stuff to clean up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the response that it triggers it's remarkable because it's almost like they gauge a response in the body. It's like, oh, this is what a healthy anti-inflammatory response would be.
Right.
And then here's what your body's doing. Well, wait a minute. What, how did my body start misfiring? When did the programming get messed up? At what point?
I've got theories about that.
I'm sure you do. Well, I mean, I'm sure you do. And there's a lot of people who deal with a lot of what seems to be inexplicable health issues. But again, what can we do about it? This is one thing that we can take our health back, and use to proactively reestablish, because I believe that most of us have this. We have the right programming. It's there. There's just some code that gets mixed up. We have allergies are rampant. We have all these syndromes, cancers, diseases, and to try to say they're coming from one place is impossible. We live in a very toxic society as far as.
And no two people are alike.
That's right. And the body, while its resilience is incredible, it also can become fragile for people, and so how do you build back resilience? Did I just use the word build back? Sorry about that. Never, at least I didn't say better.
How do we build resilience?
Yeah, how do we build resilience?
We create that state of stress so that we can build those muscles. You don't build a bicep without ripping and tearing the muscle tissue.
That's right.
You first have to rip and tear that tissue. So anytime that we want to build our capacity for stress or build our capacity for anything, we have to increase our discomfort. So the ice lets us do that.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, the most powerful medicine we have is the placebo. The most powerful and effectively proven medicine we have ever tested is the placebo.
Mm-hmm.
So if that doesn't tell you that the power of your mind is really the true power, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Whether I think I can or whether I think I can't, I'm right.
I was trying to remember that exact.
Is it Henry Ford? I don't remember.
I was butchering it last night,
Yeah.
but I was trying to.
Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
And I was trying to say last night, whether you believe you can or believe you can, you're right.
The method is that the ethos is there.
It is there. And just the ability of the body to then realize, oh, I haven't been doing my maintenance on this part.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we've got all hands on deck, I see that now, so all of a sudden things start functioning, like I used to have a lot of stiffness in my arm, and it's totally gone now. I barely remember I used to have it, but I'm pretty sure, doing consistently in the cold bath just kind of brought attention to it for my body that wasn't there before.
Well, it flushes out the toxins from your system.
Yeah.
It does that through your vascular system. It does it through your breathing. It does it through your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system. Your body is going into overdrive. So you're getting a deep flush of the system. I used to have rheumatoid arthritis. I have 2 metal plates,
Wow.
and 6 pins in my right wrist. And it used to be sometimes my arm would swell up to twice its size from the inflammation and from rheumatoid arthritis. And it would be hard to move. I couldn't write. I could barely hold a pencil. And you can see this on an x-ray. Mm-hmm. If you do an x-ray, you can see where rheumatoid arthritis lives within the joints. A year after doing ice baths, no trace of rheumatoid arthritis in my system.
Shit.
If I do overdo it with this arm and I am feeling that strain or I get a slight amount of inflammation, guess what the answer is? It's not a Tylenol or an ibuprofen.
No.
It's an ice bath.
Right. That's amazing. I had no idea you had.
Had.
And there are people who are on medication right now
For rheumatoid arthritis.
and are told that this is just going to be the way
It's
it is
just
for
what
you.
life is like. Yeah.
And they've accepted that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a shame, because there's no prison but what we make for ourselves. And God, you just said something that really resonated with me regarding. Oh, I remember. So the breathing, right? So I learned last year about how ancestral trauma, and trauma in general gets stored in the body. Yeah. And that's because the body is very, very good at, handling the biochemical reactions of joy and laughter and love. And then when we come to fear and trauma and, holy fuck, almost the way the body's like, this is too much energy, I'm going to store it. Okay, here, we'll just call it fat. Put it over here. The body doesn't really know what to do. And we have this natural avoidance for these things, not just emotionally and mentally and intellectually, but also the body, as above, so below. And so I was learning, I was at a workshop with Greg Braden, and we were doing a lot of, I think you would call it holotropic breathing. We had an incredible instructor who went from kind of the plant ceremony world to just this. And, they were explaining the science behind how you can metabolize those peptides, because that's kind of where they traced the trauma and how they can track where it gets stored through these, I forget the name of the peptides. I'll try to find it for the video description. But, and by doing this breathing, which is very, very similar to the breathing, that we do before we get in the ice bath, you are metabolizing that trauma, whether it be from this life or the previous. And that allows you even more presence and the ability to create and manifest the life that you've been dreaming about. So if it's health you want, I just think that the method that you have come up with acts in so many ways and so many levels, and it's so powerful. And that's if you had just invented the hardware of the ice bath, we wouldn't be talking,
Right.
But
I wouldn't be sitting here.
No.
I wouldn't be sitting here because I couldn't keep doing it with that competition. I could not keep trying to face the hardships in my life with aggression and defense.
Yeah.
I had to find a way to become the water, to become as fluid and flowing and gentle and strong when needed as water.
It's beautiful. It's there's nothing stronger.
And I want to touch on the breath a little bit too, because I believe the breath is our literal most powerful tool. We take it with us everywhere we go. It's the one and only thing I believe we need every single day. You don't need water every day. You don't need food every day. You can even go without sleep for a day or two. But we need to breathe every day. And most of us are unaware of the way that we're breathing. And if any of you listening right now even just want to check, are you breathing and does your chest rise? Or are you breathing and your belly expands? So if you put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, you want to pull your breath all the way down into the belly. Your shoulders don't rise, your chest does not rise, only your belly expands. Do that 3 to 5 times. Every single time you think of your breath, concentrate on that breath 3 to 5 times. You will literally put yourself into a parasympathetic state just by training yourself to breathe into your belly. So when you're in traffic and you're frustrated, or you're sitting in a meeting and you've heard someone say the same thing 3 to 4 to 5 times and it's driving you nuts, if you're dealing with a teenager, a toddler, a kid in their 20s, or a difficult partner, whatever it is, practice breathing into your belly. That subtle change right there will literally change your life. Mark my words. Come tell me about it. Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro.
No, it's so fucking true. And we live in an age where I want to walk up to people who I don't know and be like, "Will you just breathe in your belly? Your breath is so shallow, it's choking me." You know what I mean? Like I just, and like between that and like posture and people walking around with their their heads are so far up their asses.
You know, and you know you can do this. You know that you can use your own energy in any situation to change that. You can yourself just sit still in a room full of people, breathe into your belly, breathe into your own calm state. This is what horses do with equine therapy. This is why horses are so effective at equine therapy, because they're using their own nervous system to help regulate yours. They are the bigger, more powerful, more intuitive beast, and they are using their nervous system, their breath, their heart rate to help you regulate. This is why it's so powerful for children with autism, for veterans with PTSD, for anyone who struggles in social situations or social anxiety.
Yeah.
Horses are amazing. Animals are incredible. They speak to us all the time without words.
They sure do.
And kids pick up on this big time. Kids pick up energy. But as soon as you walk in a room, kid knows who you are. So how do you want to walk in that room? Breathe into your belly, then take that step.
So much to be gained. My old vocal coach, she was an opera singer. She was from the South. Her name was Nova. And she spoke like a Nova. She was very excited about that. But she used to say, with each breath comes salvation, Faust. And it's so true, isn't it? Because actors would get up, we would get on stage or get in front of the camera and be like, and you can't do anything.
Can't do anything with that.
No, I was just telling we were catching fly balls with a bunch of 12-year-olds, and some of them are still like, and I'm like, listen, everyone, come around. Let me explain something to you. You can't do anything when you're in a state of, oh my God, and you're not breathing. So when the balls hit you in the air, the first thing you have to do is breathe. Before you move, before you do anything, you got to breathe and get relaxed, because you're not going to catch the ball. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to move. You're not going to be able to think. You can't do anything when you're not breathing.
And it's the way that we breathe too. I mean, if you breathe in and you breathe out, it's just all, we don't feel safe. If I breathe out, I breathe in and I, that's how my subconscious knows I'm safe. So if, just even in breathing with an audible sigh, I am telling my body, it's okay, you are safe.
And we need to feel safe.
We need to feel safe.
We definitely need to feel safe. So some of this list of health benefits,
lay it on us.
It's enormous, and we could probably spend all day talking about it. But we've talked about immune system, enhancing mitochondrial function. So that's, a lot of people are like, mitochondria. How does it increase mitochondrial function for people who are like, I'm not sure what that means?
Well, here's the kicker here. That's Tom. That's all Dr. Thomas Seeger. And you can find that information on the website under the scientific or the journal tab. And Tom can talk about mitochondria. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But I know that we need to love our mitochondria. I know that our mitochondria are what really is the basis for all of our health. Like, where are our cells being created? How are the new functions in our bodies being formed? So I'm pretty sure there's an article about that on the website. Throw that in your show notes.
Yeah, I'll put it in the video description, guys. And
then we'll all go home and Google what is mitochondria.
And we're talking about the smallest of the small and the function of the body. So the reason why some of you maybe haven't heard of mitochondria is because it's kind of what has come out more prevalently in the last 20 years about the understanding of regeneration of cell and therefore energy in the body. And mitochondria is a fancy word. I think it's the same one that George Lucas used in Star Wars when he was gauging the strength of young Jedis. Wasn't it mitochondria? Or was it?
I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm like, I've definitely seen the movies.
Somebody who's listening who's also total closet.
Tell us.
Well, will tell us, yeah. I think it was, I think he said mitochondria. It's like, his mitochondrial count is off the charts. I'm like, where have I heard that word before? And Testosterone is another big one.
And that's important for men and women.
Thank you.
This is one of the big misconceptions about testosterone. We think of testosterone, we often think of men. But women need it too. We need it for our vitality. We need it to help regulate, because women's hormones fluctuate throughout the day.
I would argue even more so than men.
100%.
Yeah.
Men don't fluctuate throughout the day.
Yeah.
Women literally fluctuate throughout the day. Women are 4 different versions of a woman in 4 weeks. So we need the testosterone to help regulate the progesterone and the estrogen. We all need the testosterone for vitality. We all need it for energy, to help grow and build muscles, to help grow our hair, to help us look young.
Yeah.
We all need testosterone.
I agree. And I think it's a big misconception that women don't realize how important it is to their own hormonal regulation. And in fact, it's one of the master regulators in women as well as men. And the ice bath has been shown for everyone, who has not been privy to, kind of like over the last year or 2 years, there's been some remarkable data that came out about what happens when you use the ice bath before you exercise.
Yeah, we have several articles about that written by Tom on the website. And one of them is called Pre-Cool Your Workout.
Pre-cool your workout.
Pre-cool your workout. Do your workout, then within 20 minutes, or do your ice bath, and then within 20 minutes, start your workout.
Yeah.
And they did it with these ARX fitness machines too, where they could see that there was like a 15 to 18% increase in the output.
Wow.
When people would ice bathe first and then work out.
So not only are you getting more out of, and I've noticed this too, like my heart rate stays lower. My energy levels don't peak and crash. Like I just feel like I could go for days.
It's consistent, and there's not that drop. It's not a drop like after a pre-workout drink.
Right.
Or a drop after a cup of coffee, or a drop after a sugar crash. Like this is good, sustainable energy. And this is the difference between making your own testosterone and getting synthetic testosterone.
Yeah.
On synthetic testosterone, there is a risk of too much.
Yeah.
When you're producing it yourself, guess what? Your body knows what you need.
That's right.
Imagine that.
And the levels are just literally off the charts. You don't see anything like it. I mean, unless you're literally talking about, testosterone replacement or whatever they're calling it these days that men love to do.
And Tom has been tested every year since we started this. This is one of the reasons that my business partner, Dr. Thomas Seeger, got into the cold, was because he was suffering poor prostate health. And the doctor wanted to put him on a synthetic testosterone. And Tom's like, I'm not doing synthetic anything. How can I do this naturally?
Right.
And that's what led Tom to cold exposure.
Wow.
Well, imagine that. We can do it naturally. But some people prefer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know.
You go ahead.
It's everybody to each their own. I always say that,
Yeah.
You gotta,
yeah. And when he started, his doctor was concerned for his prostate health. Within a year, he had the testosterone health of a 19-year-old male. He puts all of this stuff on the internet. All of his labs, all of his charts, it's all over the internet. He can't fake it.
Yeah.
His doctor even one year did whatever that extra test is, because they're like, oh, you can hide it. You could be doing this and you can hide it. So we're going to do this extra test to make absolutely sure you're producing this naturally. Well, guess what?
Yeah, he's
producing it naturally.
Wow. How fucked up would you have to be to I'm producing it naturally, but really I'm injecting it. I'm just trying to
lie to you.
Get attention.
I just, need charts.
What the fuck? It's crazy. It's crazy to me. I mean, I've seen those videos. We'll link those videos in the show description as well.
They're good.
Yeah, they're really good, really informative. And I'm trying to convince my wife to do it before she works out. Because I'm like, listen, you don't even know the health benefits that would come. Yeah, I was like, and testosterone has a bad name. It's really good for men and women.
Well, and it's okay. It's still okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't. It's okay if you ice bath or cold plunge and you don't work out right afterwards. That's okay.
Yeah.
I don't like to ice bath in the morning. I also don't like to work out.
Yeah.
So I like to ice bath in the afternoon, you know, and they get that like little slump, or that instead of going to happy hour, now it's an ice bath and a
Right.
sauna session. So I'll do a contrast to switch over from that work mode to that like home mode. But yeah, I mean, you're still going to produce testosterone even if you don't work out afterwards.
Yeah,
So it's still good for you.
definitely. So it's so good for you. I went. I had not a scare. I mean, I knew it was going to be fine. I kind of psychically knew it was going to be fine either way, you know. And I didn't think anything of it, but I had this spot because I started coaching my kids in baseball, and we moved from New York to Georgia, and so the sun exposure is a little different. And I'm not usually in the sun so much, but sports is something we've always wanted to get the kids into. Since we moved here, we've been able to do that. And I had this spot on my ear, right? And I was trying to wipe it off because, you know, typical, I'm like, what the hell is this stupid thing? You know, and my wife saw it, and she's like, you have something on your ear? I was like, yeah, I tried to get it off. I can't get it off. I was like, I don't know what it is. She's like, you better go to the dermatologist. So I went to the dermatologist, and the dermatologist was like, ooh, I don't like the way that looks. And I'm like, yeah, I don't either. That's why I'm here, okay? I was like, I just noticed it. I see it doesn't belong. It's right here in front of my ear. And she's like, okay, let's, you know, they biopsied it, and she was like, hopefully you won't hear from me. And then I got a call like 2 weeks later, and they were like, so we found a little something, and it's totally contained and localized, but we do want you to come in, and we want to make sure we get it all. I was like, so, okay, what does that entail? And she's like, well, she's like, we usually do it by, what did she say, centimeters. And I was like,
How big is your ear?
I was like, it's already healed. I was like, from the, you know, you did the biopsy, but it's healed and there's nothing there anymore. I was like, we ain't talking centimeters, okay? I was like, let's go to millimeters. She was like, no, for this it would be millimeters. And I went in because I was like, yeah, of course, you know, I want to make sure that you got it all. But they went and they snipped part of my ear, and, you know, they do that thing where they're like burning it, but they're bringing it down, and then they try to sell you a skin graft, and she was like, so he was like, I'm going to recommend the skin graft, you know, and I'm like, listen, as long as the cartilage isn't showing, you just leave it to me, okay? And he was like, okay. He was like, but, you know, your ear's going to end up flat, and you're not going to be able to feel anything.
You're going to look like a much cooler boxer.
I was like, you let me worry about the shape. I was like, as long as the cartilage is there, and, you know, if it's not sticking out, I don't need any skin grafts or anyway, long story short, I went back for my checkup, and he, you know, I was like, I'll grow my ear back, and he was laughing at me. I was like, no, I'm serious.
I have a nice
He was like, how are you gonna do
that?
that? I'm like, I'm a fucking wizard of the highest order. And him and the nurses were laughing. I was like, don't worry about it, all right? I was like, so I went back and for my 3 months, and the woman who found it was the one who did my checkup, and she was like, the ear looks incredible. She was like, Mal, did you ever get feeling back? I was like, I never lost feeling in my ear at all. I was like, and it never lost its shape. And I was taking, you know, I stayed with my ice baths. I was just more invigorated into my health when they found this spot. I was like, obviously I'm going to be a little more mindful of the sun when I'm out, and not pretend like I'm not, you know, I didn't get the best genes. My mom is olive skinned and Italian, and she can go in the sun, and my dad, you know,
not so much.
Not so much. He's like, he goes in the sun, he turns into a lobster, you know? And I got most of my skin from him, unfortunately. But you know, I'm convinced that she's like, your immune function is incredible. She was like, it's remarkable that you were able to grow this back with no mouth, you know, the ear is not, you know.
Looks like a good ear.
It's the same, basically.
Yeah.
Can't really even see where they cut into me.
No.
And I was more inspired than ever to be consistent with my, because I knew the immune response was going to just keep, you know, helping me rebuild. And, you know, I'm so glad I didn't let them sell me on some of the other stuff. But I do believe that the ice bath contributed a large part to how fast I healed, how much I was able to heal. So I just thought I would share that with you. Yeah.
I love that. And it just goes to show when our nervous system is calm, our body can function on what it needs to function on. It can work on the things that it needs to do to keep you alive.
Yeah.
But when our nervous system isn't calm, our body is spending all of its energy just trying to get us back to a calm state. Another reason the ice bath works so well for that is the shiver response. And there's another incredible article on the website about this, to shiver or not to shiver. You can build a great, deep emotional resilience by suppressing your shiver response. You're also then activating your brown fat to warm the body. The brown fat turns white fat into burning energy. It's all a beautiful process. You can also allow your body to shiver. And what that does is it releases physical muscle memory of trauma that is stored in our tissues. You can read about that in the book by Dr. Peter Levine in An Unspoken Truth. He also talks about it in the book Waking the Tiger. But we don't shake the way that we're supposed to shake.
Incredible.
After, so like if a deer's in the forest and they hear a sound, they go on alert. But before they can go back to grazing, they have to shake.
Yeah.
You've seen your dog do it. You've seen your cat do it. You've probably even seen your kids do it. But it becomes socially unacceptable for us to just walk around and shake every time we get freaked out by something. So now, if I'm cut off in traffic and I'm like, oh, I shake it. I shake it out.
Yeah.
So there is a benefit even still to that shiver response post ice bath that is helping you release that physical muscle memory of trauma.
God, that's just mind blowing.
Isn't that just insane?
I'm speechless.
So this is how it helps us get back into our bodies when we've suffered from PTSD, substance misuse, or like our first responders who are just always in heightened and elevated states. Somewhere in the back of their mind, they're always waiting for that next call. The majority of the calls come at night because that's just what life is like. So their sleep's interrupted. They work these insane shifts. I mean, each of these three sections of people, plus anyone else out there in the world, we're just trying to be back in a state of homeostasis, back in a state of calm.
Yeah.
Now, when deer are grazing in the forest, they're always calm unless they hear that sound. They immediately shake and go back to grazing and back to calm. They don't live in that state. No. If they lived in that state, or if they did not shake, they wouldn't be able to graze. Then they wouldn't be able to eat. Then they'd become agitated. They would be disruptive to the herd. All of these things are proven in nature. We just think that because we have these nice cars and these cushy homes and food and grocery store shelves that we're not animals.
Right. We're so confused.
We're animals. We need to treat our bodies and ourselves like animals.
Now, the earth would be a lot better off if we would do that as well.
Yeah, it would.
I was listening to this man speak to earlier today, actually. Remarkable theory he had. I disagree with some of it, but he makes a few awesome points. He's notorious. He was one of the most powerful psychics to ever be employed by the United States government. Kind of helped them write the book on it. And with remote viewing, they give you an envelope. They don't tell you what's in the envelope, especially when you're the best. They're just like, "What's in it?" And he's like, "What the fuck?" And he started describing this enormous pyramid. And he was like, "But this is a new discovery." And they said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because there's huge rooms in this pyramid." And he knew that in the pyramids in Giza, there's no huge rooms. They don't have the kind of construction to support it. So he had no idea what he was remote viewing, but he was like, he was trying to find out, because he was like, "I'm sensing these people, but they're big." And they're like, and he's like, "And the sun looks weird." They're like, "Don't look at the sun." Don't mind the sun. Anyway, incredible description. He was like, "So where is this place?" Because they were giving him GPS coordinates. Mm-hmm. They take out the envelope and they show him Mars, 1 million BC. He was like, "Wow." So specific. So specific. Then, and he described and of course, then we have the satellite imageries. They found the pyramid he was talking about. They found the road he was talking about. They were able to verify almost every single thing he described in detail long before they took the pictures. So when they finally got the pictures, he went there and he said, "Hey, I heard that these are available to the public since we paid for them." And he gave him the GPS coordinates. And he said, "I swear to God, the guy at this National Laboratory Institute said, 'Oh, that's you want the pictures of the old city in Mars.'" And he was like, "Yeah, that's the one."
That's the one.
Then I asked him, he said, "What do you think of this?" He said, "I think the only aliens on this planet are humans."
Yeah.
He said, "Why do you think that?" He said, "Because we're the only ones that don't act like this is our planet.
We're the only ones in denial about our existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, "The rest of the animals, they treat the planet so good. They know. We're the only species that just fucking seems to think they can do whatever they want to whoever they want."
Consume and destroy. Consume
like,
and destroy.
If the rest of the animals from Earth don't do that, then how did the humans get it in their heads? I was like, "Yeah, that's good. I agree with him, but not all of us do that. That's a
No,
very
but that's
recent
exactly
phenomenon.
it, though. We get in our heads.
Yeah.
That's how the humans screw it up. We get in our heads. We get out of our body and into our heads.
Yeah.
It's another thing I love about the cold. This is a practice that forces you into the sensations of your body. So if you have any disconnection or detachment from head to heart to body, this will reignite that communication. That is part of the beauty of the physical sensation of freezing cold water. You have to be in your body for that.
Yeah. One way or the other.
One way or the other.
That's what I love about it too. Because I go through your method and I get very present. And by the way, this is a great practice to have if you have kids who, have anxiety about certain things. You get them in their body. You tell them, "Hey, look at me. Tell me how your butt feels in this chair right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hold my hand. Tell me how am I squeezing you hard right now?" All of a sudden, you put their attention in their bodies, and what they're not doing is allowing their little, frontal lobes to do gymnastics and get them into an state of anxiety over something that's probably not even happening. Right?
Or even if they are sad or angry, where do you feel that in your body?
Yeah.
What does it feel like? So that we're not afraid of it. We don't have to be afraid of these things. And this is the other thing that I've discovered over the last few years working so closely with so many different types of people with the Morozko Method. Once you learn this method and you practice it in the cold, this becomes a tool for transmuting stress in real time, in real life. No one even knows. You could be standing on stage. You could be in front of a boardroom. No one even has to know that you are enacting this method, and you can calm yourself down.
Yeah.
I've had first responders use it on calls with children, post-fire, in shock, like feeling into your body, breathing into your belly. These things, exhaling with an audible sigh. What can you hear? What can you see? What can you taste? What can you touch?
It's a lifesaver.
It's a lifesaver.
Really is a lifesaver. Because to be stuck in that repetitive, especially for people who are dealing with PTSD and first responders, that cycle that they're in, and many of us are in this cycle and we don't even know it. We don't even realize it. But to start to disentangle from these cycles, and find methods, whether it's cold water exposure, whether it's breathing, this is absolutely within your best interest. Because the subconscious is like an onion. It's very layered, and it's very powerful.
Yeah, we're never going to get to the bottom of it.
No, I don't think not in one life anyway. But it's the work I think is the most important work we can do. It leads to happiness. It leads to joy, and it leads to realizing that there's a lot to be grateful for. And from there, you can really create a lot from that state.
And when happiness and joy feel like they're out of reach, when feeling good feels like it's not within your reach, the cold can change that for you. Because the cold will produce the chemicals that create peace in the body and peace in the brain.
Yeah. And how would you like to have like a little dose of that? I mean, it's like
pushing a button, feeling better.
It literally works just like that. Who would have thunk it? I even got my dad talking about it. I was like, you better talk to me before you, because I'll tell you what to get.
My dad talks about it. He hasn't tried it yet. He got real close. He got real close once, but he hasn't tried it yet. And he's going to listen to this podcast. Dad, I know you're listening to this podcast when it comes out.
I'm going to give it to my dad too.
Yeah, get in the ice.
Yeah.
Dads, moms,
My God.
sisters, brothers.
Talk about invigorating.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So I have this tradition that I do on my show, it being aptly named Far Out with Faust. You know, I love to try to take my guests just a wee bit outside their typical orbits. You know?
Here for it.
You came all this way, my friend.
Yeah.
So tell me, I talk a lot about ETs, but like the guy I was just referring to, I do believe that, you know, the human race in and of itself is not exactly completely indigenous to this planet. But I think that life on a planet comes from and is seeded from somewhere, you know, in general. So it's not when I say that, I don't just mean, humans are aliens or any of that. But I'm wondering, you know, if you've had any experiences, if you've ever seen a UFO or had experiences with dreams, and in any part of your life, you know, like when you're younger or now or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you what. This last year, I have become trained in reading Akashic records.
Oh, cool.
And through that, and through this journey of self-discovery, specifically since being introduced to freezing cold, I have discovered that I've discovered many things, but I believe that we are all from the same energetic state of consciousness. And when you come here in your human form, and I come here in my human form, and we learn these lessons that we do, we have these experiences and love and loss and grief and joy, that all of that feeds back to one greater conscious collective. I also believe that I've personally had the opportunity to be here in many forms. As an amoeba, as a plant, as animals, as truly just energetic consciousness. This time I get to be human. Other times I've gotten to be human. And it all feeds into itself. So you think you're sitting over there as some separate entity and being, but we are all the one and same entity and energetic being. So that's what I believe.
We have similar beliefs.
Yeah.
You know. And
yeah.
I just think it's such a remarkable way to experience yourself.
Yeah.
If you are the creator, if you are source, God, whatever you want to call, you know, the unseen mind or intelligence that has created all this, and this is just one structure of it.
Just one facet.
And it's like this minuscule sliver of it. The possibilities and
blip on the
combinations,
radar,
you know, are endless.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a sense of that. We can attune to that, especially as we begin to get healthy and, you know, put our bodies in a state where we can start to contemplate these things, you know, because we're not in survival mode.
Exactly. When we can quiet the stillness, quiet the mind to be in stillness, that's when these types of messages and downloads can come through. And I think of it as, I didn't just work this lifetime to get here. I've worked over several lifetimes in many forms to get here. And I believe that I am blessed right here, right now, because every single lifetime I've lived has poised me for this, has poised me for this level of peace, this level of awareness, this level of spirituality, and being able to share it with people, share it openly on podcasts that are being delivered among the world without being burned at the stake. You know, and there's some people in our society, there's some people on this planet that still cannot do that. So I will double down on my ability to do that. Share these healing gifts, share these benefits not only from ancient physical modalities and practical practices that we can use, but also these intuitive and spiritual practices that we can use through meditation, through breath, through intuition and Akashic readings, through energetic frequency. We have it all. Mm-hmm. And when we can quiet our minds long enough, we can be opened up to what it all actually is.
Absolutely nothing to say to that perfect statement. It is a perfect way to end this incredible interview. And God, I'm gonna write that down. And it's so true. We have it all. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful that you came.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you. Thank you for helping me achieve my greatest missions.
You're very welcome. And the feeling is mutual. And I feel this exact, we're very aligned in a lot of our beliefs and thoughts. So this has been a pleasure. And again, thank you for giving your gift to the world, because it's making the world a better place, and people are getting healthy and happy because you have, because you are putting yourself out there. And I know I speak for myself and my experience with your incredible Morozko Forge and your method, that I'm grateful. And thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
You're welcome
for coming. And well, we're gonna sign off here, but I'm gonna show you my forge outside.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll check it out. But listen, if you have stayed with us this long, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please hit the alert notifications. You guys know you can find me across social media, ranting and raving about things that you won't hear anywhere else, probably. But I appreciate you guys listening, and we'll be back next week. And God bless everyone. Question the answers, my friends. Thank you so much.